Summer 2023. That's where we're at. Can you believe it? It's halfway over. I mean, August is right around the corner. We've already got back to school ads playing on the TV. It can be a little depressing. Were you able to pack in everything you wanted to into this summer? Did you have your high hopes, things that you wanted to do, time spent with the family, with friends, whatever? Um, it's passing on by, and I'm sure we're all busy. I know this past week I've been inundated with requests for contracting work, and I've had to kind of check myself a little bit. Like, I've been working towards this goal of getting a boat for the family that we can spend time together, get out there, use it, live life. And it seems like there's just a lot to do. It's hard to actually get out there. We did go last week, and it was amazing. Plenty of mistakes were made, but no one got hurt. All of our property and other people's property is in good shape, so that's good. But but seriously, you have to be intentional. That's what I'm figuring out with your time, with how you spend it, and as creatives, especially if you're doing contract work or you're a full-time freelancer, it's like feast or famine. At least that's what you tell yourself. So we find ourselves charging too little or saying what the prospect wants to hear so that we can land that project, because who knows when the next one will come, and we want to squirrel all those funds away for a rainy day or whatever. But at the same time, I realize that the more that I want to invest in myself and in building this CRE8 brand, the website, the social posts or whatever, the more that I want to do that, the more that I want to just create for myself, the more that I tend to attract more work. And I think that that's something that happens with all of us. If we're throwing out this kind of air of desperation, whether it's with regards to our work as a freelancer, or if you go way back to high school, or for me or whatever, where it's like, oh, I need a date for this dance, or I want to have a girlfriend, and you just give off this air of desperation, rather than when you're in that place of, hey, I'm cool with myself, I'm living my best life, I'm doing my thing, right? Then that's when people are attracted to you and want to be around you. And I think it's the same way with work. So as hard as it is for me personally to say no to something, or that's going to have to wait, or now's not a good time, or we're just not a good fit, for fear that I may be putting myself in a bad place, I think that's actually the way to go. You've got limited time on this planet. You've got limited time for this summer. I mean, that's what we started out talking about. Make sure that you get out there and do things, and that'll just make all of this other stuff worth it and enrich it. I talked back in the early days of this podcast about the importance of having experiences and being well-rounded, and the things that make me different versus you are what makes my art or design or creativity unique. I'm able to leverage experiences from playing football back in the day, or what it's like to be a bearded, heavy-set white male, right? you know, um, put your hands up, all you heavies out there, right? But seriously, yeah, just be intentional with your time. And that brings me to what we're doing here, what this is. I'm being intentional with a little show coming at you every week, create or die, because it's a mantra. It's who I am. If I'm not creating, a little piece of me is dying every second that I'm not creating. And creating can include creating great memories. So it doesn't have to mean that you're behind the computer. So let's remember that. Today, we've got an awesome guest. I've been kind of a fanboy of the industry that this person is involved in, industrial design. The things that we use every day, our phones, our computers, our favorite electronic device, those awesome controllers, these clickety-clackety keyboards, whatever. Those were all designed by industrial designers, or if you're in the know, ID. That's what my guest refers to it as. Is, super minimal. You don't even have to say the full phrase, the full term, industrial design. You can just say, I'm an ID person, or I'm obviously using it wrong. I'm butchering it. I apologize. But today's guest is a senior industrial designer at Enlisted Design, and she's worked with some amazing brands and is here to talk to us about her journey, how she got into industrial design, what made her specialize in that, and has some great insights as to the process and what you should know if you're interested in getting into it. So without further ado, let's welcome today's guest, Carly Kim. Carly, it's a pleasure to meet you and in person over technology. Appreciate you being willing to come on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I guess we have a friend in common, Andrew Garlock, and you both currently work at Enlisted. Is that correct?
Yep, Enlisted Design.
That's awesome. And Andrew didn't say anything too horrible about me, otherwise you wouldn't have come on, I guess, right?
Well, we actually can't really talk much because we work in two different offices. You work in Salt Lake City office and I'm in Oakland. So I actually haven't had the chance to talk to him about you. Okay, good. Well, that works out well. No, if you do chat, say hi for me. But that's awesome. So you're in the Oakland office. Do you end up going there in person often, or is it more remote these days for you? We do mostly weekly remote. We go in every Thursday, but whenever the project requires us doing more prototyping, we would go in more often, but not that many people will be there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We've definitely gotten used to leveraging technology and working remotely in this day and age. So that's awesome. And later in our conversation, I'd love to dig in a little bit more about your process, about prototyping, and because you deal with design in the physical world, whereas a lot of us just create things digitally nowadays, and that's where it ends up. So that'll be awesome to dig into that. But before we go there, I'd love to learn a little bit more about
what it is you do in general to create. Is it industrial design and you're focused on that, or does your creative interests reside in other areas as well?
My major interest is definitely in industrial design. I sometimes dabble into different types of like artistic activities, but I always try to bring some of the learnings from that to industrial design. So I would say ID is my main focus.
Yeah. No, I love that because, yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, it's probably about 50-50, the conversations I have with people on this podcast where they're more specialized or they're more generalist. And it sounds like you definitely are in that specialist camp. And that's awesome. So I'm curious, let's go back a little further. How did you initially get into ID?
Like any other art kids, I was interested in art, but I was also fascinated by the idea where I can build a tool and that can help mass people, not just one person. Even if it's like a minor way of helping them, I thought that's a great impact that I want to make. And I didn't really want to I never really thought of myself as someone who will like change the world or change the future, but I always wanted to give little help here and there for just people in general, like that's around me. Yeah. So I really like the idea of design just by itself. I feel like all design is in a way like that. And I get to use my artistic ability to kind of be a professional in that.
Yeah. No, I love it. And the idea that you're designing real world things that can really have an impact on people's real world physical lives. Do you remember a time where maybe that first item that you picked up and you thought, hey, this was designed by somebody? It just didn't, appear that way? Do you remember that time when it actually clicked for you that these objects, whether it be a game controller or a electronic toothbrush or whatever, was actually designed by a designer?
I think my first item that I can, at least something I can remember, is 2G mobile phone.
Okay.
If you remember that.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure it was Motorola.
Yeah.
and back then 2G phones had so many different types of design. And I think I was only like 6th grader, but just looking at everyone's phones and how different they are, I was kind of interested in why are they formed differently?
Yeah.
Though they function the same.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so kind of as a follow-up to that, are you super critical of everything you pick up or you see in the store that's been designed? Do you find yourself buying something specifically because it's designed better than something else?
I guess I do unconsciously, like little bit for everything, but not too much if I don't have to. If it's not for work, I don't really think that much about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just more conscious about purchasing things, not just because of design, but also I don't like the idea of just constantly buying things, and it's environmentally unfriendly. And how, even though I'm an industrial designer and I design products, by filling up space with products just mentally and environmentally devastate you. So I think about that a lot instead of how the product is designed or how it looks.
No, that's great. So you're looking for products that are manufactured responsibly and not only with the materials that they use, but their longevity. So it's not something that'll just get discarded all the time.
Well, I think as a consumer, it's not really easy to know the manufacturing process
Yeah.
when you're just in the grocery store, like physically, or home goods store in person. So instead of, well, if I have background information about the manufacturing, their environmental friendly story behind it, that's great. But what I think about more is like how I will use it. Will I use it for a long time? And will I actually use it often? Will this make me happy? That kind of stuff.
No, that's fascinating. I love that. So it sounds like you're somewhat of a minimalist as well. Like just by the way you're talking, you have this kind of Apple-esque, clean black collar neck thing going.
I think all designers just wear it because it's easiest thing to throw on.
Yeah, no, totally. That's awesome. And so, speaking of Apple, and before we got started here, I mentioned the name Johnny Ive, who to many designers is somewhat of a design hero, because we grew up using the tools that he helped create. Do you have any design heroes that you follow or look up to?
I don't think I have a specific designer. I admire designs in general when I see it in the real world, but I don't think I rarely relate that to a single designer.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even if you are a star designer, the effort behind those designs are probably a team of people, not just designers, engineers, and project managers.
Yeah. No, and that's probably a good segue into what the process looks like for you. You have a brief come in, a client, they need a specific thing created. Talk about that process and maybe how many people are involved and what that looks like.
So I think you're asking for a general process of
just general
design an idea.
Yeah.
Or at least in enlisted design, most projects kind of start with strategy, unless the clients already have one. We do have a strategy team we are growing. We just start to talk to clients and get to know them better. As we get deeper into execution process or ideation process, on the ID side, we will start to get inspiration, mood board set up, and get our workspace set up. We are using Mural at this point as a digital platform where multiple people can kind of collaborate to build a board.
Yeah.
We found it useful because we can always engage the clients with us in this process. So during the ideation phase, we will constantly talk to our clients, talk about their needs, talk about their users, to do concept ideation, generate concepts. As soon as we kind of get the idea of where this project is going, we will kind of polish up a little bit of certain concepts, develop it further, refine it better, present it to our client. But that's just a mid-phase. So sometimes we do multiple of this mid-phase presentations, but usually in the more shorter projects, it will be one mid-phase presentation and a final presentation where everything is much more polished up with in-context renderings and more of a hero shot, we call it, so that our client can also be really excited to have this product in their company.
That's awesome. So it sounds like up to that point, it's all digital. You haven't created any physical prototypes usually?
No, actually, we do a lot of prototyping. So during the mural board phase of workshop, so I feel like ID is never clean process. Like one thing ends, one thing begins. it's really hard to do that because it is a physical product, and we're trying to use digital platform in collaboration. So in between, while and sorry, while we're building this board, we want to fill it up with sometimes hand sketches.
Okay.
I do a lot of digital sketches as well, but they are the same thing because we are doing really rough sketches just to get our ideas down on the paper, talk to people, and develop that through eyes and perspectives of multiple people. And in order to kind of convey ideas, sometimes you really need a physical 3D model or just a rough paper model that moves the way that you're thinking so that you can communicate. I feel like in design, sketching, prototyping, essentially is all about communication.
Yeah.
So whatever it requires, whatever we have to do to get the right message across, we will do and put it on the board. So I think, by just saying we make a board is an understatement.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like there's a lot involved there. And so for you personally, do you delve into like 3D modeling in addition to like hand-drawn sketches? Is it?
Yeah, of course. So I think I ended the process a little too early because sometimes our project ends just with concepts, but a lot of times we also bring those concepts into the real world by going through the manufacturing process, which is where the prototyping happens more and more intensively. We are now going down to the detail of the curvatures, like ergonomics, how it looks, the scale by doing 3D printing or just making one-to-one model with whatever material we have and what's right for the product. And sometimes we even get an outside model maker who will make our concepts look exactly like the real product to communicate with clients. Again, like I feel like everything about this is communication and refinement of the product quality. So after that, we will go into manufacturing, talk with the manufacturers, work with either their engineers, clients' engineers, or maybe consultant engineers to really make the product the way we want it to be. And during that phase, sketching might happen, prototyping might be happening. It's never a set process.
Yeah. No, that's great to know. That's fascinating. And so I imagine that as you're getting closer to a finished project, you have to think like an engineer or a business owner in some ways, like knowing the tools that mass produce these things. Scale is important, or how can we break up the pieces for mass production so that they work with existing machining processes. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Experienced industrial designers generally know a lot about manufacturing. We do learn from school, we have classes, but you really understand it as you work as an industrial designer. So even during junior phase, you listen to what senior people are talking about and you start to understand what they're going through. And as you start getting involved into manufacturing phase, you will talk to engineers and learn naturally. It is somewhat required to know manufacturing as a senior designer, obviously, to manage and execute as a project.
Yeah.
And I always think engineers, clients, and whoever is also working on the team are part of the team. So instead of me trying to know everything, they will always have answers and perspective. So it's more important to know how to talk than know knowledge.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm more of a generalist myself, and lead a team of specialists in web design or graphic design or animation, illustration. But knowing a little bit about those things enough to have a intellectual conversation helps a lot. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying is you need to at least have that as a prerequisite for a senior ID person. So we've talked about that process. I love it. It's fascinating, and that it's not just linear, that you don't just move from one phase to another, but it's constant iteration and communication with the client and stakeholders. Do you have a specific favorite part of that creative process?
I personally think many part of design, especially execution, can even be painful if you're really into it. And everything becomes worth it when you start to execute it or prototyping it and realize your solution might actually work, or this is actually becoming a product that will help people's daily life. I think that's when it becomes really rewarding for me.
Yeah.
Aside from smaller enjoyment through just execution in general, I feel like all creative people find it really playful, and they find happiness just through making things by using your hands. So aside from that, I feel like finding out if your solution will actually work gives me most joy.
Most joy. I love that. I love that you use the word painful, because I think that's something that we all experience at different points of the project, but maybe we're not honest enough to admit that it can be painful. And so that's a good segue into the younger generation, those who are maybe just getting out of high school or college and trying to decide if this is something that they would want to get into. Is there any advice that you would give those younger prospective designers?
Well, if you're asking specifically about industrial design, I think as high school student, it's really important to know the difference between fine art and design, just overall, because design can be very different from art that we are exposed to as a kid or younger person. I mean, even as you get older, not that many people know about industrial design, and they don't really know what it's like. And industrial design job is less about personal expression. It's all about the user and all about the people around you. So if you are someone who are interested in that, I think design is a great place to be. But if you are more of expression person and trying to convey that idea to other people and just be an artist, I feel like fine art is more of a right way to go.
Yeah. No, that's great advice, and I think something that people need to hear, because you grow up drawing and you get through high school and get gold stars from your teachers or whatever because you did a good job on your shading or whatever, and you think, oh, I'm an artist, how can I get paid to do this? And so you pick design, but then you find, like you said, that's not the job of most designers, especially it sounds like industrial design, is to help realize a product that is best for the end user or for the needs of the client, as opposed to, hey, this is my chance to really put my stamp on something and everybody's gonna use it and the glory is all mine or whatever. It doesn't quite work that way.
I'm not saying there's no creative expression in industrial design. There definitely is all the time. It's just not expressing your emotion or your own thoughts. It's more about trying to emphasize with the users and trying to sink in their shoes and express them. Um, a lot of ID people actually have both of that passion of designing for others, but also expressing as an artist. So
Yeah.
I do have a lot of design friends who make or do art on the side, which is great. And you can do both, but if just in terms of working as an industrial designer, I think it's really important to know and understand the difference as a kid.
Yeah, no, I agree. And super well said. You said it a lot better than I did there. So appreciate you clarifying. um, yeah. So something you said there, and it sounds like maybe not, but do you have any of your own little pet projects of industrial design projects that maybe something no one's asking you to create, but you just kind of think one day maybe I'll build this thing, and you have little sketches? Do you do stuff like that?
I used to do freelancing, so maybe that counts. But
Yeah.
usually, if I am doing a personal project, I do create things sometimes, but it's always for myself. It's not really a project, not really industrial design project. It's a sort of a craft hobby
Yeah.
that utilizes ID skills.
Okay.
So I don't know if I would call it a project, but I do it sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. So you do have a creative outlet here and there, crafts that you explore. I love that. And let me know. I'm curious. Like, industrial design is obviously the physical product. Like, if you think of unboxing an iPhone, the ID piece is the iPhone itself, and maybe the plug connector. Where do you think ID lives as far as like packaging design comes in? Is that something that you as an industrial designer would get involved in, or just leave that to like the graphic designers?
I really like working collaboratively. Also, as an industrial designer who have been in industry for 6 years, which is not really that long of a period, but from what I know, the position of ID is different in every situation. But in consultancy, industrial designers do work on packaging design, mostly on structure, but we will always partner with visual designer for them to create the graphics, the branding. So it's actually a collaborative effort. And we also have a professional packaging designer on team. So he is creating the packaging structure most of the time. The ID involvement is when we are doing ideations, concepts, just that idea of solving problems for user and creating concepts according to it is what we do.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome to hear, because that's something I've dabbled in a little bit. Had a few projects where I've done some packaging design, and it does feel like there's some crossover there, but I like what you said there, that a lot of times there is some kind of collaboration. And can't believe it. This time has flown by. It's been awesome to get to learn more about you, Carly, and then this fascinating world of industrial design, because it's something that I'm a fanboy of. I'm by no means experienced or have any skills there, but just something I was super excited to pick the brain of someone who is a specialist in this area, and you've exceeded my expectations. So thanks so much for joining me.
Well, this was an interesting experience for me too. Thank you.
Great, excellent. Now, just as a final parting thing, is there if someone wanted to reach out to you and maybe ask some follow-up questions, is there the best way to get in touch with you?
I try to answer most of the messages on LinkedIn. Sometimes I might miss it, but that's probably the best outlet.
Okay, find you on LinkedIn, and that's where you're most likely to respond. I love it. Okay, Carly. Well, thanks again. It's been an honor.
Me too. Thank you.
What'd you think, friends? Pretty good, right? Carly, she's a specialist in what she does, and I'd like to thank her once again for coming on our little program, Create or Die. It was a real pleasure to learn more about you, Carly, and about what it is you do. It's so cool. You know, one of these days we're going to get my boy Johnny Ive on here. He can talk a little shop as well. But until then, I'm going to watch or listen to this one again and again, kind of soak it all up, if you will. So I hope you do the same. And if you're in the neighborhood of createordie.net, go check it out. Some new stuff is coming, or maybe since you've been there last, it's been updated. I don't know. Check it out just for funsies, right? But I appreciate your support. Keep telling your friends, tell your family. This is the podcast you gotta watch, you gotta listen to. It's got a lot of heart, and you got a big, cuddly, bearded fella coming at you every week. So who doesn't want that, right? Am I right? For reals. All right, my friends. Until next time, keep on creating. Create or die.